Greetings, everyone. I'm Jill Fitchard, the Executive Director of the Community Oversight Board, and I'm very happy to be here with you for the Community Safety Townhalls. I'm so very thrilled to have this opportunity to moderate this town hall meeting this evening, and I'm thankful for all the participation and feedback that we have received from the community. I want to start with some housekeeping matters. So to participate in our town hall, you can call 629-255-1907, and that would bring you on live. And there will be a 2-minute limit on statements. You also can leave a pre-recorded statement by calling 629-255-1906, and we'll check that mailbox as we are broadcasting live as well. And you can also give a written statement, and you would just send your written statement to the MNCO, and that email address is www.community@nashville.gov. And we'll be checking that box periodically throughout the evening. For those that call in, we will do a quick intake and put you into the queue. If you are listening online to the meeting, please be sure to silence it before you go on air to avoid feedback. And those who are on the panel, just a reminder to mute your phones after speaking to avoid feedback as well. Our host today may ask clarification questions, but will not otherwise engage in dialogue. And finally, if you are not able to get through tonight, we encourage you to use the alternative forms of participation, or you can try again next Monday when we will host our final Community Safety Town Hall on September the 28th. So let's get started. I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists and give them the opportunity to speak briefly about themselves. And so first up is Dr. Marissa Richmond. She's the chair of the Metro Human Relations Commission. Dr. Richmond?
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to our third community town hall about public safety and the hiring of the next police chief. Marissa Richmond. I'm a native of Nashville, was born and raised here, grew up in North Nashville and Bordeaux. Since June or July, I guess, actually, I've been serving as the chair of the Metro Human Relations Commission. I'm currently in my 4th year on the commission. The Metro Human Relations Commission was originally chartered in the 1960s to address discrimination and harassment, particularly by the police department of the Black community. It was then shut down about 20 years later, but then was rechartered in 1995 after additional incidents. And we are chartered by the Metro Council to address discrimination and harassment across Metro government, specifically with regards to the issue of race. We are a 17-member commission from all walks of life, from all parts of the community, and we oversee a 4-person staff that is very active and very aggressive. We're pleased to be part of this town hall format, and again, we've already had 2 with over 50 people who called or written in with various comments. And these comments are being collected to pass along to help with the search and selection of the next police chief and for the direction of the community. Of course, tonight's focus, as you heard, is on Black, Hispanic youth, LGBTQ, and immigrant and refugee communities. And as both a Black and transgender woman, I am very much connected to these communities. I wish I could still say I was still a young person, but unfortunately, time has passed me by on that. So I appreciate your time and participation tonight, and I'd like to turn it back over.
Well, thank you. And so next up is the Community Oversight Board Chair, Mr. Andres Martinez.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Dr. Richmond. My name is Andres Martinez, and I am the current chair of the Community Oversight Board. I've been part of the Community Oversight Board since its formation back in 2019 and have been serving as chair just about a month now. The mission of the COB and Metro Nashville Community Oversight is to provide an accessible, respectful, independent, and effective forum for community participation in the investigation and resolution of complaints of Metro Nashville Police Department misconduct, to examine and issue policy recommendations regarding local law enforcement policies and practices, to encourage open and constructive communication and cooperation between local law enforcement and Metro's residents, and to protect civilians' rights and promote professionalism and best practices in the police department by enhancing community police relations and creating a safer Nashville. The COB is an 11-member board who oversees an 8-person staff. My day job is at Conexión Américas here in Nashville. I'm Director of Policy and Communications at Conexión. Our mission is to build a welcoming community and create opportunities where Latino families can belong, contribute, and succeed. So I'm excited to hear from everyone today. I don't know if we have any callers in the lineup yet. Do we have any calls, Jill?
No, we don't have any calls, but what I'm going to do is read a statement from one of the community members that sent something in. And so let me begin with that. We received a statement, a comment from Mr. Scott McGilberry from the community of Hillwood. And he states, what would you like to see in a chief of police and for public safety? His response is, somebody not from Nashville, with a history of developing a plainly visible and concentrated focus on eliminating racial discrimination in policing practices, eliminating the use of military tactics and equipment, and increasing connectiveness with communities, in particular Black and Brown communities. I would also like to see full cooperation with the Community Oversight Board and reduce fealty to the police officers' labor union, if possible. As a white, upper-class male, I do not trust our police officers as a general statement. My own personal experience with officers have been that they are authority-loving bullies with guns who are looking to kick some A. I have never been in trouble with the police and have never felt personally threatened. Part of that is because I am an upper-class white man whose rights are more likely to be respected and who has the knowledge and resources to take any recourse if I was treated inappropriately. And I'll read another statement. The next statement is from Michaelia Dudley from the Antioch neighborhood. And she states, it says, what would you like to see in a chief of police and for public safety? Her response is, someone who is for equality of the justice system for all races and hold the officers accountable. And I believe we have a call. Caller, when you're ready. Caller.
Hey, okay, I'm sorry. Hello, well, my name is Julian Walker. My one question that I would have is, for the next police is, would they have any plan or what would their initiative be around diversity within Nashville? Basically, just to ensure that all people within Nashville are treated equally. And that was it.
And Jill, do we have anyone else on the line?
So no, and I am going to read another statement. So this statement says, it's from Verna Wyatt. She's the co-founder of Tennessee Voices for Victims. This statement was received, it didn't get through for the last meeting we had. And so she's from South Nashville, and she states, it says, what would you like to see in a chief of police and for public safety? And it says, I tried to call in when there was a public hearing and my call would not go through. So I'm submitting my thoughts in writing. As a victim of crime and an advocate for victims for 25 years, I want to brag on the services for victims of crime in Davidson County. I have always said, if you're going to be a victim of crime, may it happen in Davidson County, because there are so many wonderful resources to help victims, but put the pieces of their lives back together. One of the best services that Metro government offers citizens is embedded in the police department. The Family Intervention Center offers counseling to victims who have suffered trauma from crime victimization, domestic violence, homicide, rape, assault, everything. It is a free service, and these mental health counselors are experts on this kind of trauma caused by violence, because these are the only cases they see. The domestic violence unit and the counselors there are also an amazing part of the police department. Decades ago, when Nashville began their domestic violence program, they were recognized all over the world for their forward-thinking programs in response to domestic violence. These things are so very important to our community. The Family Safety Center in Nashville is a jewel for our state. As Tennessee is constantly up in the top 10 states where men kill women, we cannot relax our concentration on domestic violence. It must remain in a police priority. Specialized units in the PD are important because they become the experts because they are doing the same work every day. If I have a heart issue, I'm not going to go to my general internist. I want a heart doctor. It is the same way when policing. When Surpass came in, he dismantled most of the specialized units except DV. And I think he would have done that if he thought he could do so without causing an uproar. Former MMPD homicide detective Pat Castiglione is literally a legend in Nashville for solving homicide crimes. He became the legend because he worked these cases every day in the homicide unit. It became second nature to him. In addition, victims want a police chief who is responsive to their crimes. They want to feel safe in their neighborhoods and the streets. And as an advocate, I want a police chief who understands the importance of care for the victims in the crimes they work. When selecting the police chief, please remember how important victim services is. Currently, Nashville has an outstanding reputation for the good work they do on behalf of victims of crime. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Jill. I think some messages from some people saying that they're having trouble accessing the link that was on the flyer. It's the stream.nashville.gov. I was able to access it on my computer, but when I try to access it on my phone, it doesn't work. I don't know if IT has an answer for that, because I'm hearing that many people aren't able to access that link either on their phones or on their desktop browsers.
Okay, thank you for that information. That should have been resolved. And just to be clear on what you see on our splash page for the mnconashville.com email, that is incorrect. If you want to send in a written statement while we're on to get your statement out, the email address is www.community.nashville.gov. And I think that we have a caller waiting. Caller, go ahead. Caller?
Yes.
You can start.
Oh, right now, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry, I think I'm just thrown off because I'm listening to somebody speak. Is this a live thing or is this recorded?
This is live, ma'am.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, so I go now?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I'm doing this right. Hi, yes, good evening. Full disclosure, this is Nikki Jenowitz. I'm a reporter for Fox 17 News. Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, yes. In case you couldn't hear me before, this is Nikki Jenowitz. I'm a reporter for Fox 17 News in Nashville. Throughout the last several weeks, we've been hearing from different advocacy groups promoting racial justice as well as justice for victims of sexual harassment and assault. And they've been expressing their concern that the board or the committee of people who will be selecting the next police chief, they're concerned that they want to make sure that their voices are heard in that process. And I wanted to speak with you all about kind of what your understanding of how that was going to work would be, and how that these victims can make sure that their voices are being heard in the process for selecting the next police chief.
Thank you. So what we're doing is, that's why we're having these community safety town hall meetings, so that we can take all of the community's voices collectively, put them in a report, and send those to the mayor's office so that they can have the community's voices. That is the main purpose of these community safety town hall forums. And so we think as well that the community's voices should be heard, respected, and considered.
Okay. Can you comment at all on what you've been hearing from these different advocates and victims who have been calling in terms of, the problems that they would like to see changed in the city of Nashville and at MNTV?
Well, this isn't the opportunity to do dialogue back and forth. We are just collecting information at this time.
Okay, I understand. All right, well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
No problem. We have another caller. Caller, we're ready for you.
Caller, you're on now. Caller, are you with us? Caller, you're on.
Hi, yes, my name is Brian, and I just wanted to call and just give a quick comment and question maybe. And so I am one who works with the LGBTQ community in our city. Have been doing it for about the past 7 years. And I want to first say I'm grateful that our city does have a LGBTQ liaison, which is amazing, Nakia Reed. But what I do want to ask, or just kind of have some questions or concerns about, are just wondering if this will be something that our city is looking at, is kind of really honing in on our LGBTQ homeless youth. I've worked with several programs that try to provide outlets for our LGBTQ homeless youth, but I'm wanting to know, just from our city, what more will we do to protect those young people who may have been kicked out their homes by their parents, because of their sexuality, and they're now out in the streets trying to survive, but also have to fear the police, who don't truly understand all of their circumstances. So I would love to see more programs with our city police department, more connections with community-based organizations like the one I'm involved in, which is called Mashup Nashville. And that's kind of all my comment and concern, and I'm not really a question, but I just wanted to put that topic into the conversation.
Thank you, Brian, for that. Certainly, and you probably are well aware of Oasis Center and the Launchpad program. That, of course, is privately funded. That's not part of Metro government. But certainly that is one resource that does exist in Nashville. So again, we appreciate your question, your comments, and your concerns for LGBTQ youth. Do we have another caller in?
No more callers, and I'm going to play a sent-in recorded message.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jamie Raven. I'm white, I'm 39 years old, and I live in Sylvan Park. I think that the police chief and all officers should live in the county they serve in, so in Davidson County. I think that the police union should be gotten rid of because I think it's too powerful. I think that cops should not be in schools, and I think that for mental health wellness checks, a police officer should not be the person who goes to check on the person. I think it should be a social worker, and then they can call a police officer as backup if necessary. I also think that surplus military equipment should not be used by the police. Thank you. Hi, my name is...
And now, thank you. And now we have a call.
Okay. Go ahead, call.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking my call. This is Councilmember Nancy Van Rees, also the chair of the LGBTQ caucus of the Metro Council, and I particularly want to thank those engaged in including our community in this discussion. I wanted just to call in to make a brief comment about the importance of the police department LGBTQ liaison, and any new chief, we'd like to make sure that they have some experience in regard to how that sort of relationship would work with the community, as well as any potential employee resource groups that our LGBTQ folks in service to the community can participate in. So I just wanted to throw those 2 cents in to make sure that as we're looking for a new police chief, that we're specifically asking for their experience in that regard.
Thank you so much for your call.
Yes. Do we have another caller? Yes. Thank you, council member. Do we have another caller or a question in waiting somewhere?
So we don't have a call, but I do have another recording to play. So I'll play that now.
Hi, my name is Blake Stockard. I'm a resident of Davidson. I'm white. I am 29. And I'd like to give a comment on the search for the police chief. I would have liked to have called in an earlier meeting, but there was a technical issue, so I'm going to leave my comment for today. I would like so my comments come after an interview I heard with Interim Chief Drake over the weekend, in which he kind of talked about how he did not see a race-based problem in policing, but he instead saw what he called quote-unquote hotspots of policing. I know this comment, the meeting is not specifically to talk about Interim Chief Drake, but it kind of outlines what I would like to see, which is the new chief I really want somebody in the position who can think beyond, who one will acknowledge the racial components to the over-policing in our community, the intentional over-policing in neighborhoods like North Nashville and East Nashville, and places where a higher concentration of Black people that has been systematically created over time. To do that is over-policed strategically. And I would like the new police chief to be someone that would openly and publicly acknowledge that fact, and who would commit themselves to working to de-escalate, someone who would take seriously the report, the Driving While Black report that came out a few years ago, and would actually look into the claims made in that report, as well as someone who would think broader than just policing as a solution for some of these issues. For example, over the weekend, Interim Chief Drake talked about how in the interview that he wanted to potentially, reallocate funds to train plainclothes police officers to do interventions for mental health. I think that is, while I appreciate the sentiment of that idea, I do think we need more mental health workers on the ground. Those don't need to be from the police office. They need to be trained social workers who have gone through extensive training on crisis management and on helping folks. And basically, what I'm trying to say is, I'd like in a new chief, I would like someone who can think critically about the issues that are that face our community from the public safety standpoint, and evaluate and see, are there other opportunities to collaborate across the metro government to address these issues that don't center around policing. So in the example of Interim Chief Drake's comments, is there a way to involve a mental health provider in the community, or is there a way to get metro social services involved, et cetera? So those are kind of my two comments. One, being willing to engage with the racist history of policing in our community, acknowledge it, and work to address it. And also someone who can think critically about, the major structural issues and be willing to acknowledge that policing may not be the right approach in all cases. Thank you so much for your work. I really appreciate your service to our community, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a caller waiting. Caller, if you're ready, go ahead.
I was just calling to make a comment or kind of a question about what I would like to see police chief, and something that I continue to see is police are often backed up by saying they follow their training. And so if we know that the training...
Caller, we need you to speak closer into the phone. We can barely hear you.
Okay. Hello, yes. I was calling because I have noticed a trend that oftentimes when police issues occur, their training is usually the backup for the reason that they actually follow their training is the reason the outcome happens. So with the new police chief, I would actually like to see someone who is going to actually change some of the trainings that are problematic and actually take into account mental health crisis or policing in different areas, and kind of like take into account all the things that are problematic.
Caller, could you give us your name, please?
Yes.
Are you still there? I'm sorry?
Yes, my name is Christopher Goodman.
Christopher, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we don't have any callers in the queue. And so what I'm going to do is engage our chairs. I had a couple questions prepared. And so while we're waiting for callers, I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions. We also had, people call in that were in support of certain initiatives. And so I'd like to say that MMPD has initiatives intended to reach out to the Spanish-speaking and the LGBTQ communities, like the L Protector program, as well as they have an LGBTQ liaison. So what is your experience or view of those initiatives? And what would you like to see for the future of those initiatives? And I'll address that initially to Dr. Richmond.
Well, thank you. Yes. Excuse me. Well, first off, the liaison, you heard two callers tonight, Brian and Councilmember Van Rees, both mentioned the liaison. That position was created about a year and a half ago, and has worked, I think, very well with the LGBTQ community. The current officer, Officer Reed, doing a fabulous job, I believe, and having that liaison is really helping improve lines of communication. In addition, the trainings that we've been doing, called the Mobile Diversity Seminars, organized by the Metro Human Relations Commission, take place twice a year, and we have 4 components of that. For the Muslim community, the Latino new residents of Nashville community, the LGBTQ community, and the African American community. And so I've participated particularly personally on the last 2. And I think they're important in helping raise understanding and awareness of all of these communities. But we've only been doing them for about 3.5, 4 years. And so obviously it takes some time to filter through the entire department. and we certainly are willing to work with MNPD to expand those to cover as many people as possible. So that's my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate your perspective. We do, Mr. Martinez, I'll get with you in 1 second for your responses because we have a call waiting. Caller, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes. Go ahead, caller.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Flynn, and I've already waded in on a number of issues related to the hiring of a new police chief. What I have not shared, and I wanted to today because of the LGBT option for comment, our daughter and her wife live in Oakland, California. Only come, and both of them were born and raised in Tennessee. Her wife's in rural West Tennessee, but she's here in the Middle Tennessee area. And both of them are very uncomfortable coming home. It's really unfortunate that they don't feel like they can display their affection in the Middle Tennessee area. And I would say that, well, some people might say that has nothing to do with the police. I think the tone that the police force offers in terms of acceptance and understanding goes a long way to the comfort level of people who are LGBT in this community. And I just wanted to say it's really sad for us that they feel, they're very active in politics out there in Oakland, but they feel like Nashville is so far behind in terms of acceptance of LGBT displays of affection and freedom of movement. And they're particularly concerned about if they ever had a run-in with police, that it would end up in a really negative situation. So I'm just really hoping that Nashville will hire a new police chief that didn't come from this force, comes from somewhere on the outside, and someone with really progressive views across the board, and particularly with LGBT. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling in, Ms. Flynn. Appreciate it.
Sure enough. Bye.
Bye. So, Mr. Martinez, I'm going to engage you now. I'll repeat the question since we have no callers waiting. So, MNPD has initiatives intended to reach out to the Spanish-speaking and LGBTQ communities, such as the El Protector program and an LGBTQ liaison. What is your experience or view of those initiatives, and what would you like to see for the future of those initiatives?
Thank you, Jill. I think the El Protector program has been vital to the Spanish-speaking community here in Nashville in terms of getting to know police officers, getting to know what the police department is doing, different parts of their, different initiatives of theirs. But I do think that there's a lot of room for growth in that area. Over the past couple of months during the pandemic, I think the El Protector officer has done a great job of communicating with Spanish-speaking residents here about what's going on with COVID-19 here in Nashville. What about the mask mandates? And all those questions that we have that don't necessarily get communicated in Spanish from our city leaders. So I think there's an opportunity to put in more resources to expand that work and to make sure that this work isn't seen as largely symbolic. If some people aren't able to access the protector at the time or hear any Spanish-speaking communication from MNPD, it risks being seen as symbolic. So last year, I know as part of COB, we conducted some community listening sessions to hear about the Latino immigrant community's experience with MNPD. Many of them did say they found the program largely symbolic. They didn't know about the summer camps, for example, that the Protector program offered. So, while they appreciated the program, Many of them just didn't know about it. There just sometimes feels like there's a disconnect between the Latino immigrant community and MNPD and the Protector program, given the political situation that we are experiencing in this country and the uncertainty. But I think the El Protector program is a step in the right direction, and we should strengthen it to make sure that we reach more community members.
Thank you. Thank you both for such insight into both of those questions. I really appreciate how you address some of the issues that I think that many of the community members, also you reflected those in your answers, what the community is wanting. And so I'm going to go. We don't have a call in the queue. I'm going to read a call in. So this is from Susan Jata. Her neighborhood is Belshire Estates. What would you like to see in a police chief and for public safety? Number one, must be sensitive to the racial injustices that have been brought upon Black citizens by white police officers. Number two, an advocate for adequate funding for ongoing police training, police officers' adequate salary to meet market comparisons. And number three, support the use of body cameras. We thank Ms. Jata for that. And we also have a recorded message that just came in. I'm going to play that since we have no calls in the queue. And here we go.
Hi, my name is Jace Waller. I am 20 years old. I reside in Nashville towards Antioch, and I want to see in a police chief someone who's going to take LGBTQ plus issues seriously in our town and in our neighborhoods and make sure that those that are suffering, such as LGBT youth in the South, are taken care of and not criminalized, especially for Black trans women who are ostracized and rejected from many parts of society. And I want to see that a police chief will make it a priority not to just uplift those in the LGBTQ community that they're able to connect with through businesses, but also to connect to those that are considered the most deemed the most undesirable in this society, which is not how it should be. And I want the chief of police to be able to contribute to normalizing seeing trans people succeed. And that means also in police staff. So having more inclusive police staff that includes uplifting jobs for LGBT, especially Black trans individuals. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so we don't have any calls, and so I guess the next step will be is to engage our panelists again with a question. And so the next question that I have is, we've heard reports of increased violence among Black and brown youth. What would you see as a meaningful engagement with youth of color for community safety? And I'll address Mr. Martinez first.
Thank you, Jill. I think increased outreach is the best tool here. Making sure that our youth are occupied, are knowledgeable of what's issues going on right now. Perhaps many minority youth don't feel as connected as other youth do. I know, speaking from my perspective, working at Conexión Américas, sometimes as a new American, you may not feel as connected to this culture, to your schoolmates, as others are. Sometimes your immigration status affects you being able to participate in what everyone is able to participate in. And I think those exclusions are big factors in getting involved in crime, getting involved in things that we shouldn't be involved in. So I increased outreach definitely to make youth, especially new American immigrant youth, feel welcome despite everything that may be going on politically, everything that may be going on that is out of their control.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. And Dr. Richmond, I'll address the same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
No, I'm fine. And actually, I kind of see that question and the comment from the previous caller we just heard from sort of interconnected. Sometimes youth, even though, there are growing numbers of Black and brown police officers, sometimes they don't necessarily feel any sort of connection to that, to them. And I think the model, is coming out of Newark, New Jersey, as I recall, this community policing effort, and that we need to do a better job and look at the ways that some of the other communities are better connected. And in particular, for Black and brown members of the LGBTQ community, in particular in the trans community, and I introduced myself at the beginning, I am a Black trans woman myself. And so the caller's comments resonated very closely with me because that person was talking about my community and the victims of violence, or the violence, the epidemic of violence is really bad in my community. And so seeing more people from our community hired and in those positions, I think helps build that trust and helps increase understanding of us and what we're doing, and certainly helps bring down some of the myths and some of the barriers that separate Black and brown communities from the police, and in particular those of us in the LGBTQ community, and most importantly those of us in the transgender community.
Thank you both for your comments and your insightfulness. So I appreciate that. We don't have any callers in the queue, but I would encourage viewers and listeners to call in at 629-255-1907 to call in live. If you want to leave a recorded statement, you can do that at any time. That number is 629-255-1906. And like I said, if you want to leave a written statement that we can read while this live event is taking place, you can send us an email to community.nashville.gov. And so we have a caller that's prepared, but I would like to thank everyone for the time and attention and to spread the word and share it if you can. This is our third Community Safety Townhall. We will have another one next Monday. And so it will engage the faith leaders, the senior citizens. It will engage the homelessness, those experiencing homelessness and homeless insecurities. And so we now have a caller. Caller, when you're ready, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Joe Woolley, I'm CEO of the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce. We have helped promote this today, and I want to thank Dr. Richmond and Mr. Martinez for hosting this and making sure to reach out to other community groups to get the message out there. It is very important to focus on marginalized communities in the search for this. The Nashville LGBT Chamber represents over 500 members, a mixture of corporate, small business, and nonprofit and gig workers across the county. We also serve to connect everyone in the LGBT community to resources and opportunities like this. And thank you again for having this conversation. We have had a long history with the Metro Police Department in a number of different ways. We were the group that shared the Rainbow Wrap Cruiser for Pride when they did that for Pride last year. It was a huge social media campaign for us that it kind of exploded, and we were very proud to share that. But it's the gestures like that to the community to show that they care are very important. We'd love to see more of those seeing the police involved in the community, whatever community that is very important. The LGBT Liaison has played a huge critical role in a number of different ways with the community. I'd like to speak briefly on its impact around economic and community development for the city and how businesses across the country and the world saw the creation of that position after the harassment of transgender individuals by police and firefighters from Metro. We were very happy that Metro responded in that way. Continued work by the LGBT Liaison and others and highlighting LGBT leaders within the force is something that we'd like to see going forward. Also speaking to other members across the community, both corporate and small business. They want to see a chief that is known in the community, that travels around, that people have a relationship with and feel like they can trust and build on that trust. Community policing to be part, at the heart of all policing efforts, having officers that know their precinct and their beat and know the communities that they are patrolling. We have some members that know their patrol officers very well. We have others that have never met theirs or they've dealt with different ones every time there's been an issue. We hear we'd like to see expanded diversity training for all officers, both new officers and cadets, and then refreshers for longtime officers to continue the diversity training that's already going on. And to make sure that diversity training is not just focused on gender and race, but to have the conversation that we have when it comes to equity, that it needs to be to include sexual orientation and gender identity, but that we're dealing with marginalized communities. Dr. Richmond has hit on this several times, but you have a Black gay man being marginalized of the marginalized, a Hispanic lesbian being marginalized of the marginalized, and then a Black transgender woman who is the marginalized of the marginalized and has the highest murder rate for them. And we need to pay specific attention to that and speak to all marginalized communities, but remember the marginalized of the marginalized. Again, thank you for this town hall to focus on that. And finally, we hear from our businesses on the issue of homelessness and their effect on their business. And we would love to see homeless care and enforcement be a bigger focus, but to break the cycle of homelessness so that it's not just that businesses call the police when they have a homeless issue, that there are programs set up, and again, this is policing, but hopefully something that Metro and the police can talk on, that we need to break the cycle of homelessness. But homelessness is a business issue for several of our members that we hear from. So thank you again for this, and we hope that we will be happy to advertise and promote the other in the future. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here and spreading the word. So we don't have any calls waiting for us, and we have read all of the statements. So I'd like to spend some time talking to our panelists and allowing them to talk a little bit about, who you are and what you do. And we'll start with Dr. Richmond.
Okay, well, as I mentioned briefly at the beginning, I'm a native of Nashville. I was born at Meharry, lived my first few years in North Nashville, right just one block off of Jefferson Street. Then my family, when I was young, we moved out to Bordeaux and lived there until after my parents died and I sold the family house. I live in Nashville, but I work in Murfreesboro. I'm a professor at NTSU, teaching both U.S. political history and women's and gender studies. Between the two programs, the two departments, I'm able to talk about and work on a number of different issues. I've been on the Human Relations Commission for 4 years, and again, been chair for about 2 months. I'm honored to be part of the Human Relations Commission to stand up for, as Joe Woolley was just talking about, marginalized communities, both those I belong to and those I don't, to try to be an advocate for all groups, to try to make Nashville a better and safer place for everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Richmond. And Andres Martinez, would you like to give us a little more insight into what you do and who you are?
Thanks, Jill. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm Director of Policy and Communication at Conexión Américas here in Nashville. Conexión Américas is an 18-year-old organization now that is made to support the Latino immigrant community here, but also prioritizes building a welcoming community and including all immigrants. At Conexión, we offer a variety of services to help immigrants belong, contribute, and succeed. What does that look like? We have programs in schools, high schools, preschools, elementary schools, not just for students, but for parents as well. Oftentimes, parents come over here without much experience in the education system, especially the American education system. So we take the opportunity to teach them about the U.S. education system and make sure that they can be advocates for their children despite maybe not being able to speak the language. We also offer English classes, entrepreneurship classes, knowing that immigrants come here with a strong motivation to start a business. We attempt to harness that entrepreneurial spirit to build strong businesses, small businesses here. We also have a strong advocacy arm. We are constantly advocating for more equitable policies, be it in the education system, in the immigration policy arena, or the criminal justice policy arena, or voting rights. We know that to make the changes that we want to see in our society, to make our families feel welcome, to make sure that we don't need to be here someday, we need to change policies. And that takes us advocating on the Hill, whether it's here in Nashville or in Washington. So we're involved in a lot of different areas. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I appreciate that. I appreciate both of you so much for the work that you do and the volunteerism that you do to help make Nashville better, because there's a lot of work to be done. And so I know that it can sometimes feel like a daunting task, but just know that you both are very much appreciated. And with that, we don't have any calls in the queue, but we do have a written comment, and I'll read that now. It's from Aisha White, who is from the South Nashville community. It says, what would you like to see in a chief of police and for public safety? More resources for immigrants and non-native English speakers. There's a lot of issues in these communities, but they are not always able to communicate effectively because of the language barrier. Also, more community outreach and engagement to these areas so they learn more about their rights and that the police are there to serve. A great way to build trust and bridge the gaps. Thank you, Ms. White. So we don't have any calls in the queue, and I will reiterate if you want to call in, you can call in live during the meeting. Right now, that number is 629-255-1907. And then you can also leave a recorded statement at any time. If you don't make this meeting, you can always leave it for the next one. And that recorded statement number is area code 629-255-1906. And once again, you can always send in a written statement. You send that to www.community@nashville.gov. So if anyone has anything to say, yes.
How can you talk more about the role of MNCO in the community now?
Sure. And so MNCO, which is the Metro Nashville Community Oversight, is the staff of the Community Oversight Board. There's 10 staff members, including myself. We have 3 investigators, an assistant director, 2 research assistants, a legal director, as well as an administrative assistant. And we have a community liaison. And so for the last, I would say, it's been about 15 months now, we have been building our agency from the ground up. And so getting the infrastructure together, as well as during the time that we were building, we were also taking complaints, also trying to figure out the logistics and building the agency. And so it's been a tremendous effort. And so without a blueprint, of course. And so I think that we have come a long way. We still, of course, as a brand new agency of metropolitan government, have, had to start things and restart them and figure it all out. And so I appreciate the staff of the MNCO and their dedication to the work that we do, because it hasn't always been just, we don't have a blueprint for it. And so this is new to Nashville. Most of us are new to community oversight. And so sometimes it's been super challenging, but their resilience is what keeps us motivated. And then also just wanting to connect with the community more. We've spent a whole lot of time, as everyone have seen over the course of the last year, really spending time on the investigation side and trying to get that, perfected. And with that, we can't do that alone. So we have had to reach out and try to work collaboratively with the Metropolitan Police Department. And sometimes that's worked, and sometimes we've had to go back to the drawing table when things did not work. And so I think that where we are today is I think that we're in a pretty good place. Hopefully, as we move forward with our MOU, this new one that had been revised, I think that will go well. And so it's just been a wonderful experience. Not always easy, but I'm very happy to be the executive director of this agency and very honored to serve our community in this capacity. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
And so we don't have any more calls. And so I think that we can move towards our closing remarks. And so, Mr. Martinez, if you have any closing remarks, and then Dr. Richmond, and then I'll close it down.
Thank you. And thank you to Metro Human Rights Commission, also, and Dr. Richmond for helping organize this space to hear from community members about their vision for a better Nashville. I would remind everyone that listened in or that might listen in later that there's still an opportunity to participate. Next Monday, while we are looking for participation from faith leaders, senior citizens, formerly incarcerated, and residents experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity. It's also a time, if you have any thoughts based on the other groups that we wanted to listen to, it's a good time to call in. Anyone is welcome to call in then.
Thank you. Dr.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody who's participated tonight. I count we've gotten 15 more comments, and that's in addition to the more than 50 plus that we've received through the first 2. I look forward to the additional comments that we will receive over the next few days and the next Monday night's live meeting, town hall meeting. It's clear that residents of Metro Nashville and Davidson County are committed to making the police department work for the community and to make Nashville safer for everybody. And certainly we appreciate everyone's interest in this topic. We look forward to submitting these remarks and all of everybody's thoughts and comments to the selection committee. And we appreciate both on behalf of the Metro Human Relations Commission, we appreciate working with members of the Metro Nashville Community Oversight Board to make this possible. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So tonight, as I wrap up, we've heard what some of the residents in Nashville want. They want trust. They want the reduced use of militarization within our MNPD. They want sensitivity to the community's needs pertaining to racial sensitivity. They want the needs of the immigrant and refugee community and the LGBTQ youth and trans communities to be heard. And they also want equity for all in the community and to protect those from sexual harassment and violence. And of course, they want our youth to be engaged. And so I'm very thankful to be here. We heard from residents from Hillwood and Antioch, South Nashville, Bellshire, Donaldson, as well as North Nashville. And so it's been a pleasure for me to moderate tonight. I appreciate everyone. And just as a wrap up, just when I was wrapping up, we have another caller. So let's listen to the caller and then we will close out. Caller, go ahead. Just 1 second, they're getting that call together. And so this has been a tremendous day. I'm very happy to hear from all that have called in and those who not only have they called in, but those who have sent in written statements and took the time to leave recorded messages. It's been just delightful to hear from you, to make certain that your voices are heard, because we respect that, we honor that, and we want the voices to be heard. It's sometimes, it seems as if, there's so much noise going on that these are times that we can connect with our community members, especially during this time where we're still kind of under the umbrella of this pandemic. So I'm just happy that we are able to put this on and have our residents connect with us in this way. And so caller, if you're ready, go ahead.
Caller, you're on.
Hi.
Hi. Caller?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, caller. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So the question is, what would I like for the police? Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I'd like to see someone who understands principles of community, someone who is willing to see the citizens and not prejudge based on the code. I'd like someone who is transparent and willing to just have open and honest dialogue about current policing procedures and practices, where we are on just understanding how to make what is a really tense racial community a little more forgiving. And I think other than that, just really to have someone who has an understanding of culture and unconscious bias. I think that about covers it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate those comments so much. Thank you for taking the time to call in.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening. All right. So we don't have any calls currently. And I am very, very happy that we were able to get another caller in. And so if there aren't any more calls, I anticipate, hold on one second. I just want to make certain that if there's no other calls, then I guess we will move towards signing off. And so thank you all for being here. Remember to connect with us in the ways that I said, which is you can leave a recorded statement at any time, even after we shut down tonight, by calling 629-255-1906 or sending in a written statement at www.community@nashville.gov. And we look forward to hearing from you. And if you can make it next week's Monday, September the 28th at 5 p.m., we look forward to hearing from you live. And the question is, what would you like to see in the next chief of police and for public safety in your community? Thank you all for being here with us, and have a wonderful evening.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.